The invisible heiress. The morning dew still clung to the roses as Amara Demir knelt in the garden, her fingers working with practiced precision. At 28, she moved with a quiet grace that seemed at odds with her worn jeans and soil-stained gloves. The sprawling estate of Nazari Manor spread before her, 15 acres of manicured perfection that she tended with surprising expertise for someone supposedly just a gardener. Ms. Demir, Mr. Nazari requests the east garden be prepared for tomorrow's luncheon, called Farah, the head housekeeper, from the stone pathway. Amara nodded, keeping her eyes on the soil. The peonies are at their peak. I'll arrange everything accordingly. Farah hesitated. He's entertaining the Japanese Investment Consortium. Very important. I'm familiar with Japanese garden aesthetics, Amara replied softly. I'll ensure it meets expectations. As Farah walked away, Amara allowed herself a small sigh. 3 months at Nazari Manor, and she'd carefully maintained her boundaries, professional, competent, invisible, exactly as she needed to be. Inside the manor's west wing, Rayan Nazari stood before floor-to-ceiling windows, phone pressed to his ear. At 34, he'd built Nazari Innovations from a small tech startup into a global enterprise worth billions. Dark eyes sharp with intelligence, he cut an imposing figure in his tailored suit. The Japanese want assurances on the sustainability metrics, he stated flatly. Have the environmental impact reports ready by tomorrow. No excuses. He ended the call just as his assistant, Javier, entered with a stack of folders. The dossiers? On the Takashi Group, sir, and the landscaping staff has confirmed special arrangements for tomorrow's luncheon. Rayan barely glanced up. Fine. Who's handling it? The new gardener, Amara Demir. She started 3 months ago. Is she competent? Javier smiled slightly. Extremely. The grounds have never looked better. She's different from our previous landscapers. Educated, though she doesn't flaunt it. Rayan's attention remained on his documents. As long as she does her job, I don't care if she has 3 PhDs or dropped out of high school. Later that afternoon, Rayan walked the grounds to clear his head before tomorrow's crucial meeting. The East Garden had been transformed. Subtle, elegant arrangements emphasized the natural beauty without ostentation. He paused, noticing a woman kneeling by a stone basin, arranging floating lotus blossoms. You've created a perfect ikebana aesthetic, he remarked, surprised by his own comment. Amara stood, wiping her hands on her apron. Thank you, Mr. Nazari. Her voice was soft but clear, her posture straight despite her simple clothes. The principles of negative space are essential to Japanese aesthetics. I thought your guests might appreciate the familiar philosophy. Rayan studied her with newfound curiosity. Her knowledge seemed incongruous with her role. Her hands, though obviously hard-working, had a certain elegance to them. Her accent was refined, carefully modulated. Where did you learn about Japanese aesthetics, Ms. Demir? A moment's hesitation flickered in her eyes. Books, Mr. Nazari. I enjoy reading. As she turned to leave, Rayan noticed something unusual. A delicate silver chain around her neck, mostly hidden beneath her collar, bearing what appeared to be an antique jade pendant. It seemed oddly valuable for someone in her position. I look forward to seeing the finished arrangements tomorrow, he said. Amara nodded, then slipped away toward the gardening shed. That night, in her small cottage at the edge of the estate, Amara removed her work clothes and stepped into the shower, washing away the day's soil and sweat. Afterward, she stood before a small wooden box hidden beneath her bed. Inside lay a single photograph. A younger Amara standing beside an elegant older couple aboard a massive yacht, the Demir shipping flag flying proudly above them. She closed the box quickly, returning it to its hiding place. The Amara Demir in E. That photograph had died 5 years ago along with her parents' legacy. Now, she was just a gardener, and she needed to keep it that way. Seeds of suspicion. The Takashi Consortium meeting exceeded all expectations. The Japanese investors were particularly impressed with the garden presentation, with Mr. Takashi himself commenting on the authentic respect shown for their cultural aesthetics. Rayan closed a deal worth 9 figures, putting him in an unusually good mood as he strolled through the grounds the following evening. He found Amara near the greenhouse, examining soil samples with methodical precision. Something about her focus reminded him of his best research scientists. "Your work yesterday was exceptional," he said, causing her to look up with mild surprise. Mr. Takashi asked who was responsible for the garden design. "I hope it was satisfactory," she replied, standing and removing her gloves. "More than satisfactory. It helped secure the deal." Rayan studied her with growing curiosity. "You know, most people would appear more excited about praise from their employer." A small smile crossed her face. "I'm pleased the design was successful, Mr. Nazari." "Rayan," he corrected automatically, then wondered why he'd done so. "That would be inappropriate, sir." Her response was immediate, almost practiced. "Perhaps. Though I find it interesting that someone with your evident knowledge of international business etiquette and Japanese cultural principles chooses to work as a gardener." Something flickered in her eyes. Wariness. "I enjoy working with living things. They're honest in ways people often aren't." Before he could respond, his phone rang, a crisis with the Singapore office. As he walked away, he glanced back to see Amara returning to her work, her shoulders visibly tense. That night, curiosity got the better of him. "Javier, I want a background check on Amara Demir. The comprehensive package." "Any particular reason, sir?" Javier asked carefully. "Professional thoroughness," Rayan replied, not entirely sure himself why he felt compelled to investigate. 3 days later, Rayan was reviewing quarterly projections when a financial news alert caught his attention. Demir Shipping Holdings, once among the largest maritime empires in the Mediterranean, was being officially dissolved after 5 years in receivership following the mysterious death of its founders, Haluk and Selma Demir. The name triggered an immediate connection. He quickly searched online for information about the Demir family, finding archived society photos from years ago, and there she was, younger, dressed in evening wear worth more than what he paid her in a year, standing proudly between her parents at a charity gala in Istanbul. Amara Demir, the sole heir to a shipping fortune that had once rivaled his own wealth. The next day, a shipping crisis struck when a cargo vessel carrying critical components for Nazari Innovations was detained in international waters over regulatory disputes. As his executive team panicked during an emergency meeting, Rayan noticed Amara passing by the open office door with gardening supplies. On impulse, he called out, "Miss Demir, a moment of your time?" The room fell silent as the gardener entered uncertainly. "Hypothetically," Rayan began, ignoring his confused executives, "if a vessel registered in Greece but carrying Turkish-manufactured goods was detained in Cypriot waters, what regulations would take precedence?" His team exchanged bewildered glances, but Amara's expression shifted subtly. "The International Maritime Organization protocols would apply first," she answered carefully. "But given the regional complexities, you'd need to invoke Article 17 of the Mediterranean Shipping Agreement, which supersedes local jurisdiction for vessels in transit. The detention would be invalid if properly challenged through diplomatic channels." The room fell completely silent. Her answer was not only correct, but reflected expertise no gardener should possess. "Thank you, Ms. Demir," Rayan said quietly. "That's very enlightening." As she left, his suspicions crystallized into certainty. The woman tending his roses was hiding far more than her green thumb. Unearthed secrets. The autumn storm battered against the windows of Nazari Manor as Rayan reviewed the comprehensive background report on Amara Demir. The story it told was both tragic and extraordinary. 5 years ago, the Demir shipping empire collapsed overnight when Haluk and Selma Demir died in what was ruled a sailing accident off the Turkish coast. Their only daughter, Amara, who had been groomed since childhood to take over the family business, disappeared from public life shortly after the funeral. Financial investigations revealed massive fraud within the company, with evidence pointing to the Demirs themselves. Their once respected name became synonymous with corporate corruption. Yet something didn't add up. Before the scandal, Amara had graduated top of her class from the London School of Economics. She spoke 6 languages fluently and had been profiled in business magazines as a rising star. Why would someone with that background and potential abandon everything to become a gardener? Lightning flashed across the sky as Rayan made his way to the small cottage at the edge of his property. He knocked firmly, rainwater streaming from his coat. Amara opened the door, surprise evident on her face. "Mr. Nazari, is something wrong?" "I think that's a question better directed at you, Ms. Demir. Or should I say, heiress to the Demir shipping fortune?" The color drained from her face. Without a word, she stepped aside to let him enter. The cottage interior was modest but arranged with unmistakable taste. Simple furniture positioned according to classic principles of balance and harmony. On a small desk sat a worn copy of Advanced Maritime Economics beside freshly cut hydrangeas. "How long have you known?" she asked, her voice barely audible above the storm. "Since the shipping crisis last week. You gave yourself away with expertise no gardener should have." Rayan removed his wet coat. "What I don't understand is why the daughter of Haluk Demir, who once owned a fleet worth billions, is pruning my roses for minimum wage." Amara moved to a cabinet, removing a bottle of expensive brandy that seemed at odds with her surroundings. She poured 2 glasses. "My parents didn't commit fraud, Mr. Nazari. They were murdered." The bluntness of her statement caught him off guard. The sailing accident was staged. "I was supposed to be on that boat." She handed him a glass. "By the time I realized what had happened, evidence had been planted, accounts had been emptied, and the Demir name was ruined." "By whom?" "A consortium of competitors, led by Viktor Orlov." She spoke the name with quiet venom. "They wanted our shipping routes in the Black Sea. When my father refused to sell, they took everything another way." "Why not fight it? With your family's connections." "They were thorough, Mr. Nazari. The evidence against my parents was overwhelming. All of it fabricated but perfect. I tried fighting through legal channels for 6 months before someone broke into my apartment in Istanbul. I escaped with my life and little else." Rayan processed this information carefully. "So you've been hiding for 5 years, working as a gardener?" A sad smile crossed her face. "I've been many things. A waitress in Athens, a tour guide in Barcelona, a flower seller in Paris. I keep moving, working with my hands, staying invisible, until I can prove what really happened." "And the gardening expertise?" "My mother's passion. She taught me from childhood that to grow things is to understand patience and persistence." Amara gestured around the cottage. "I never expected to stay here this long. Your estate was meant to be another temporary stop." Lightning illuminated her face, revealing both vulnerability and steel in her expression. "Why tell me this now?" Rayan asked. "You could have denied everything." "Because you're clever enough to have discovered part of the truth, which makes you dangerous." She met his gaze directly. "And because Nazari Innovations just acquired a shipping technology company that Orlov has been pursuing for years. You're now in his sights too, whether you realize it or not." Tangled truths. The following weeks transformed Nazari Manor into the unlikely headquarters of an investigation that crossed continents. Amara officially remained the estate's gardener, but behind closed doors, she and Rayan worked side by side, unraveling the conspiracy that had destroyed her family. Orlov's company made 3 major acquisitions immediately after your parents' deaths, Rayan observed, reviewing financial records spread across his study, each one using routes previously controlled by Demir Shipping. Amara nodded, tracing patterns in the data. 5 years of solitude had made her cautious about trust, yet there was something about Rayan's methodical approach that resonated with her own. "The key is finding the money trail," she said. "Whoever fabricated evidence against my parents had access to our internal systems. That required resources and inside help." As days passed, their professional partnership developed unexpected dimensions. Rayan found himself captivated by the duality of the woman before him. Her hands still bore calluses from gardening work, yet she could dissect complex financial structures with effortless precision. For her part, Amara discovered in Rayan not the entitled billionaire she had expected, but a man whose fortune was built on genuine innovation and relentless work. Late one evening, as they shared a simple dinner in his study, Rayan asked the question that had been bothering him. "Why gardens? With your education, you could have hidden in corporate jobs, maintained a more comfortable life." Amara considered her answer carefully. "After losing everything, I needed to create rather than consume, to nurture rather than exploit." Her fingers traced the rim of her wine glass. "Gardens require you to be present. They teach you to value what others overlook." "Like a billionaire might overlook his gardener," Rayan suggested with a rare smile. "Precisely." Her answering smile transformed her face, making him acutely aware of how seldom he'd seen it. Their investigation breakthrough came unexpectedly during a charity gala Rayan hosted at the manor. Among the guests was Dmitry Vasiliev, a former associate of Orlov now fallen from favor. With careful maneuvering, Amara, serving as a staff member, managed to position herself to overhear Vasiliev's alcohol-loosened conversation. Later that night, she burst into Rayan's study, eyes alight with purpose. Vasiliev mentioned a data server in Cyprus. He said Orlov keeps insurance policies there, records he could use as leverage if his partners ever turned against him. "Including evidence of what happened to your parents," Rayan concluded. "Exactly. But we'd need access to that server." Rayan leaned back, studying her intently. "My company is opening a new office in Limassol next month. I'll be attending personally." For the first time since he'd known her, Amara reached for his hand, her fingers warm against his. "We're going to need a better plan than just showing up and asking nicely." Their strategy took shape over sleepless nights. Rayan would use his legitimate business opening as cover, while Amara, posing as his executive assistant, would help infiltrate Orlov's data center. The plan was dangerous, potentially illegal, and their only real chance at justice. As preparations intensified, so did their connection. The line between collaboration and something deeper blurred with each late night, each shared revelation, each moment of unguarded laughter. The evening before their departure for Cyprus, Rayan found Amara in the garden where he'd first truly noticed her. Moonlight silvered the roses she'd cultivated with such care. "Are you afraid?" he asked quietly. "Not of Orlov," she replied. "I'm afraid of hope. After so long without it." When he drew her into his arms, it felt inevitable, like the culmination of a story that had been writing itself since she first set foot on his grounds. Their kiss held the promise of something neither had been looking for, yet both now found essential: blooming redemption. The Limassol sunset painted the Mediterranean in shades of amber and gold as Amara adjusted her elegant business suit, a stark contrast to the gardening clothes she'd worn for years. Beside her, Rayan reviewed their plan, one final time. "The security protocols at Orlov's data center are designed to prevent exactly what we're attempting," he cautioned. "If we're caught—" "I've lived 5 years as a ghost," Amara interrupted. "I'm prepared to risk everything for the truth." The official opening of Nazari Innovations' Cyprus headquarters provided their cover. a celebration attended by local officials and international business leaders. Among them, as anticipated, was Viktor Orlov himself, his silver hair and tailored suit belying the ruthlessness that had destroyed the Demir legacy. When Orlov approached Ryan to discuss potential collaborations, his gaze passed over Amara, without recognition. The daughter of his greatest business rivals, standing before him in plain sight, was completely invisible to him, exactly as they had planned. "Your expansion into Mediterranean shipping technology is impressive, Nazari," Orlov commented, champagne glass in hand. "Perhaps there are synergies to explore between our companies." "I'm always interested in history," Ryan replied carefully, "particularly how certain shipping empires rose and fell in this region." A flash of something, wariness perhaps, crossed Orlov's features before his practiced smile returned. "History provides valuable lessons. Speaking of which, I must attend to other guests. We'll continue this conversation soon." As Orlov departed, Amara slipped the security access card she'd lifted from his jacket pocket into her purse. Phase 1 complete. Hours later, as the celebration continued, Amara and Rayan executed the next stage of their plan, infiltrating Orlov's nearby data center under the pretext of a private tour for potential investors. With the stolen credentials and Rayan's legitimate business cover, they gained access to restricted areas. "We have 15 minutes before the security protocols reset," Amara whispered as her fingers flew over the keyboard of an isolated terminal. Years spent researching her family's downfall had made her adept at digital forensics. The encrypted files yielded their secrets reluctantly, but methodically. Amara uncovered what she had spent years searching for. Communications proving Orlov had orchestrated the accident that killed her parents. Financial transactions showing how evidence had been fabricated, and most damning of all, the identity of the insider who had betrayed the Demirs, her father's most trusted advisor. "We need to get this to the authorities immediately," Rayan said, watching as she transferred the files to a secure drive. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. On security monitors, they saw Orlov entering the building, his expression thunderous. "He knows," Amara realized. "Someone must have seen me take the access card." What followed was a desperate escape through emergency exits and back alleys of Limassol, with Orlov's security team in pursuit. When they finally reached the safety of the Nazari corporate apartment, Amara collapsed into a chair, the secure drive clutched in her hand. "After 5 years," she whispered, "I finally have proof." The evidence they uncovered proved irrefutable. Working with international authorities, Amara and Rayan presented a case that shook the shipping industry to its core. Orlov's empire crumbled as rapidly as the Demir fortune had once fallen. The advisor who had betrayed her family confessed when confronted with the evidence, bringing final clarity to the tragedy that had defined Amara's adult life. 3 months later, on a crisp spring morning, Amara stood in the garden of Nazari Manor, watching as new life emerged from the soil she had tended with such care. The legal battles had been won, her family's name restored, and the substantial remaining assets of Demir shipping returned to her control. Rayan found her there, kneeling beside new plantings despite the expensive suit she now wore as the reinstated CEO of her family's company. "The board meeting starts in an hour," he reminded her gently. "Your first official day back at the helm." Amara smiled, rising to meet him. "Some habits are hard to break. I needed to ground myself before stepping back into that world." "Second." "Thoughts?" he asked, taking her soil-smudged hands in his. "About reclaiming my family's legacy?" "No." She looked around at the garden she had created. "But this, creating beauty from nothing, nurturing growth, I won't abandon it entirely." "You don't have to choose," Rayan said. "The merger of Nazari Innovations and the reborn Demir Shipping creates something entirely new. Like this garden, it can reflect both our visions. The proposal they would present to their respective boards that day was ambitious. A combined entity that would revolutionize sustainable shipping technology while honoring the legacy of both families. But the more personal partnership between them had already taken root, growing stronger than either could have anticipated when a disguised heiress first knelt in the soil of a billionaire's garden. From gardener to equal partner, Amara mused. What would the society columns make of that? They'd say it was inevitable, Rayon replied, drawing her close. That true worth always reveals itself, no matter how deeply it's hidden. As they walked together toward the manor, leaving footprints side by side in the freshly turned earth, Amara reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had lost everything, lived as a shadow of herself, only to discover that in shedding the trappings of wealth and privilege, she had found her true strength, and ultimately a love that saw her completely, soil-stained hands and all. In the distance, the roses she had planted months ago bloomed in vibrant colors against the horizon, a living testament to patience, persistence, and the unexpected beauty that can grow from even the darkest circumstances.